I first saw her at that rooftop party, and the world seemed to freeze for a moment. Not in an overly romantic way, but in that magical, impossible to ignore way where you just know, your mind registers everything in an instant. She stood there in a crowd, laughter carrying across the wind, her eyes sparkling with something beyond the mundane. She was magnetic, not because she was flawless, but because she felt like someone who was about to break through into something bigger than any of us. Her laugh, loud and infectious, was the first thing that caught me. She threw her head back, not caring who saw, like she was already famous and just waiting for the world to catch up. There was a confidence in her presence that made everything else seem small. I was no one special. The average guy, decent job, no wild ambitions, and a tendency to overthink everything. But for some reason, she noticed me. Maybe it was my awkwardness that intrigued her, or maybe it was because I wasn't fawning over her like everyone else. We hit it off immediately. Our conversations were quick and witty, almost like we'd known each other for years. Her eyes shone with something I couldn't put into words, and I found myself wanting to know everything about her. When I left that party, I couldn't stop thinking about her. What followed was a whirlwind romance. We moved quickly. Too quickly if I'm honest now. But at the time, it felt perfect. I didn't question it. I didn't have to. She made everything feel effortless. 3 months in, we were living together. A few people told me I was rushing things. Dude, pump the brakes. You're moving too fast. That text from my friend sat in the back of my mind for about 2 seconds before I laughed it off. I'd heard all the lines about love being a slow burn, about taking time to get to know someone. But this was different. I was in the moment, and I didn't care about anything else. When you know, right? She was everything I had ever wanted, and maybe a little more. We were like fire and ice, meshing in a way that was more intense than anything I'd ever experienced. Before I knew it, we were ring shopping. The idea of marriage seemed so far off when I was younger, but with her, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. I was walking around with a smile that I didn't even realize was plastered on my face until my friends started giving me weird looks. They thought it was too fast. They whispered behind my back. But I told myself, when you know. By the time we hit 1 year of being together, we were talking about getting married. Not just talking, but actively planning it. Are you sure about this? My friends asked, voices laced with concern. But I kept telling them, when you know. There's something almost intoxicating about feeling like you've found the one. Something that makes you feel untouchable, like you've won the lottery. We had our issues, sure. But love was supposed to be this big, grand thing, right? So why wait? But then came the curveball. A year into our marriage, she dropped it on me. I used to be a child model, she said, as if it was a casual thing. Scouted at the age of 9, but by the time she was 12, her career had fizzled out. The job stopped coming. Her mother had kept pushing her to keep trying, but eventually it became clear that her moment had passed. Or had it? I think I want to try again, she said, her eyes alight with excitement. I've been thinking about starting my own modeling business. I want to relive those dreams, you know? At first, I didn't know how to respond. It seemed out of nowhere. But as she explained it to me, it almost made sense. She had that same spark in her eyes when she spoke about modeling. The same energy that first drew me to her. So, instead of questioning it, I threw my support behind her. Why not? She talked about how she'd always wanted to be more than just a former model. She wanted to build something that was all hers. A business. A brand. She dove into it head first. I watched her start buying equipment, cameras, studio lights, clothes for shoots, the works. She converted the garage into a makeshift studio. Every day, there was something new. A new backdrop. A new business idea. Glow-up portraits, she called them. They sounded gimmicky, but I was all in. After all, this was my wife's dream. Soon, she was posting daily quotes about ambition, photos of herself posing in the studio. "Big things coming," she'd say, and I'd cheer her on. I wanted to believe it too. But then the cracks started to appear. It started small. She would skip her weekend yoga class to work on the business. Yoga had been her escape, her way of finding balance. But now, all I saw was obsession. I ignored it at first. She'd say she was just busy, and that the business was growing. But I knew the truth. She wasn't getting any clients. The numbers weren't growing. She had 2,000 followers, fakes bought on Fiverr to make her seem more legitimate. None of her clients paid her in real money. Instead, it was all bartered goods, credits from friends, free products in exchange for photos, things that didn't pay the bills. By month 6, I was starting to see how deep the problem really was. Her business was nothing more than a social media presence with no actual revenue behind it. But she didn't see it that way. She couldn't see it. She was too deep in the illusion she'd built for herself. "I need more followers," she'd say as she scrolled through her feed, obsessively checking her likes and comments. "I need to manifest this," she'd add, a mantra that felt more like a shield than a reality. At first, I believed in it. I believed in her. But when she looked at me with those tired eyes, when she snapped at me for not being supportive enough, I knew I was losing her. The night she stormed out, I knew it was coming. She had been spiraling, and I was caught in the current of her emotions. "I've lost faith in this," she said. "This business, this life. I need to do it on my own." I wasn't surprised. Not really. She'd been isolating herself more and more. Her passion had turned into obsession, and that obsession had drained her, leaving only the shell of the woman I married. We fought about the business, about money, about my role in it all. She accused me of not supporting her enough, of not being a good partner. She wanted someone who would stand behind her, not question her. And when she finally said, "I need to do this alone," something inside me cracked. Divorce. The word hung in the air like a foul smell, and even though I tried to fight it, the truth was clear. We were done. The money was gone. All of it. Spent on equipment, on followers, on fleeting dreams. She moved back in with her mom, posting her motivational quotes to Instagram and getting likes from strangers who had no idea what was really happening. I walked away with half of everything and the bitter taste of regret. She was gone. And in a strange way, I wasn't sure I'd ever really known her at all. 1 year later, I got an invite to a friend's wedding. I brought my date, someone from work. She wasn't glamorous. She wasn't chasing some dream of fame or fortune. She was just herself. Genuine warmth. Nothing flashy, no social media antics. And there she was, my ex-wife, standing at the bar, a blazer over her shoulders, camera bag in hand. She was back in her element, her founder persona on full display. She spotted me, and her face shifted. That tight-lipped smile. She walked over, gave me a hug like we were actors on a set. When she saw my date, her eyes flickered. A brief moment, but I saw it. "Business is booming," she rattled off, words spilling out like they were rehearsed. But I knew everything she was saying was a lie. Her studio was gone. Her website was a ghost. It was all just smoke and mirrors. And then she was gone. Slip out early. A quick glance back over her shoulder, like she had to check if I was still watching. Nothing had changed. I stood there, watching her walk away, and I realized something. I had fallen for the first hot girl who wanted me. I thought I knew her, but she was someone else entirely. And now, a year later, the illusion was gone. I couldn't help but wonder, though. What went wrong? Was it me? Or was it just that I was always a part of her plan, never a part of her real life? For a long time, I wondered if I was the one who was blind. Maybe I hadn't understood her from the start. Maybe her ambition was just a distraction from something deeper. But it wasn't until after the divorce that I began to piece things together. When we first met, she was like a star that burned brighter than anything I'd ever seen. She talked about all these dreams, these ideas that felt so big, so grand. But underneath it all, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was searching for validation from the world, from her followers, from everyone but herself. The business she built, the modeling venture, the social media persona, wasn't about her passion. It was about the image, the likes, the external validation that she was doing something worthwhile. She needed to feel seen, to feel important. That was her currency. I watched it happen slowly but surely. Her once infectious laugh, the light in her eyes, started to dim. She became obsessed with numbers. Followers, likes, comments, engagements, those were her measurements of success. And when it didn't happen fast enough, she blamed everyone but herself. She blamed me for not being a bigger promoter, not being a better assistant. But the truth was, I was just trying to keep up with the idea of her, the idea of what we were building. It was easy to get swept up in it. At first, it felt like she was doing something I should be proud of. But I slowly realized that the more she built this online empire, the more she was disappearing. The woman I fell for wasn't the businesswoman she became. And the woman who left me wasn't the same person I had married. I'd find her sitting in front of a camera late at night, editing pictures, writing captions, obsessing over how many people were watching. Every moment was spent crafting the perfect persona, one that would attract more followers, more attention. And then came the day she posted the billboard. The billboard wasn't real. I knew that as soon as I saw it. It was a photo shoot, a well-timed post that made it look like she was promoting herself on a giant ad in the city. In reality, it was just an image of her edited to look larger than life, stretched across a fake billboard she had created on Photoshop. It was her greatest act of self-promotion, and yet it felt hollow. She posted it with a caption that read, "Dreams are made of this." At that moment, I realized I'd been a part of something that wasn't even real. I'd been her unpaid assistant, her glorified photographer, and her constant cheerleader. But none of it mattered. It was all about the illusion. The business, the modeling, the followers, it wasn't for her dreams. It was for the perception of success. And it was crumbling bit by bit. I confronted her about the billboard. "Is this how you're really going to do it? Fake it till you make it?" She looked at me with those tired eyes, the ones that had once been filled with excitement, but now only held frustration. "You don't understand," she said, almost in a whisper. "I'm doing this for us. For me. You don't get it, and that's why I can't do this with you anymore. I'm trying to make something real. Something big. I just need your support." But it wasn't support she needed. It was validation. The kind that came from followers. The kind that came from social media, from the likes and comments that felt like a constant drip of reassurance. She needed the world to tell her she was worth something. And when I couldn't give her that, when I couldn't feed into her obsession, she turned on me. Over the months that followed, I became less and less of a part of her life. She was always working. Always on her phone, always checking her accounts. The late nights spent editing photos and videos became more frequent, and the weekends I once spent with her became filled with business meetings or networking. It wasn't just that we were growing apart, it was that I was being erased. Her demands increased. She wanted me to do more, take better photos, help her write better captions, promote her business on my own social media accounts. But I wasn't part of the dream anymore. I was just a tool, a resource. And the more she pushed me, the more I began to resent her. Then came the text messages. The late-night rants about how I wasn't being supportive enough. How I wasn't manifesting, the future with her. How I wasn't doing everything in my power to make her dreams come true. I was suffocating under the weight of her expectations, and no matter how much I tried to be there, it was never enough. By the time we reached our second year of marriage, I had stopped asking questions. I had stopped caring. She was already too far gone, too consumed by her own image to notice that I was fading into the background. And then one night she told me she wanted to take a break from everything. From the business, from the marriage, from me. It wasn't a dramatic breakup. There were no screaming matches, no final showdown. There was just a silence that grew between us. She packed her things, and I watched her leave, knowing deep down that she wasn't coming back. The divorce was a blur. She kept the studio equipment, the cameras, the followers. I kept the memories, the fading, distant ones of a woman I once thought I knew. But even after she left, I couldn't help but wonder, what had I really been a part of? Was it love? Was it a shared dream? Or was it just an illusion we both got caught up in? The year after the divorce was hard. I spent most of it in a fog. I threw myself into work, into anything that would distract me from the hole that had formed in my chest. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was gone. And in her place was this stranger who was still out there, posting motivational quotes, and pretending like everything was fine. But slowly I began to heal. Slowly, I started to see things clearly. I wasn't the problem. I wasn't the one who had lost sight of what really mattered. She had, long before she even knew it. And then, a year after she left, I got that invitation to the wedding. It had been a while since I'd seen her. A while since I'd thought about what happened. But there she was, walking into that room with a camera bag slung over her shoulder and a blazer that screamed CO vibes. She was still the same. The same hunger in her eyes. The same obsession with success. But it was clear now, she was chasing something that didn't exist. She was still pretending. Still lying to herself. And in that moment, I realized something that I should have known all along. I wasn't the one who had failed. She had failed herself. And I was better off without her. It wasn't a dramatic exit this time. There was no confrontation. I didn't need to explain myself. I just turned and walked away, leaving her behind. She could keep chasing her fake success, her manufactured image, and I'd keep living my life. Maybe one day, she'd figure it out. Maybe one day, she'd realize that real success doesn't come from likes and followers. It comes from authenticity. From doing something because you truly believe in it, not because you need to be validated by the world. But for now, I was done. I'd learned my lesson. And I was finally free.